My name is Doree Bryant, and I'm the Supervisor of Human Services for the Village of Schaumburg. The Village recognizes that one of our community's most valuable resources is its senior citizens. That's one of the reasons we help sponsor so many programs and activities for this population. One of these is the Barn Senior Program, located at 231 South Civic Drive, which provides a daily nutritious lunch along with fun and fellowship. Some of our seniors from the Barn are here today to share their thoughts and observations on how things have changed in society and our culture over the course of their lifetimes. Their wisdom is something we can all learn and benefit from. Let's hear what they have to say.
I'd like to welcome everyone to the seniors from the Schaumburg Barn. This is our second panel discussion on change, and today we're going to be taking a look at the change in transportation and communication. Our panel members range in age from 70, 80 to 90 years old. So therefore they have a wide range of experience in seeing the changes that have taken place in our environment. I'd like to introduce Enos, who was born in Kentucky and moved to Chicago at a young age. We have Julia, who was born in Wisconsin and moved to Chicago also as a teenager. We have Alice, who was born and brought up in Chicago, as well as Helen, who was born and brought up in Chicago. So we have natives and non-natives. I myself was brought up in Brooklyn and moved to Chicago much later in life. I'm still learning about Chicago here. Okay, we'd like to start with our change that we're talking about. Change is the only constant in the world, and I think everyone here would agree that just when you think you have learned the way to live, life changes. And Hugh Prathner has said that. It is one of the facts of life. It isn't easy to change, and it's easier to do what we have always done, because then you don't have to think, you don't have to learn. But it's part and parcel of life. Change does happen. The first thing we'd like to talk about is communication. And we've all seen a great amount of communication changes in our life. Julia, how about you? What's your earliest form of communication that you can remember as a child?
Well, I think learning how to write or read and then communicate by letters, writing to friends or family. Other than that, I think was more vocal and verbal. That was my only really means of communication until I was older, but my formative years was mostly by writing.
And I think it was a lot easier to write back then because I think we can all remember the penny postcard and the 3-cent stamp, which children and people of today can't even imagine that existed. Okay, letter writing, oral speech has always been with us, and that has changed too. The jargon, they're constantly updating that. Letter writing. Are there any other means of communication that you can think of, Helen?
Well, our newspapers. That was the only way we communicated, and you didn't hear the news for days after it happened. And if there was something really special, you had the what are they called? He was extra papers came out, and everybody came running out to see what was going on. That was a special. And as far as telephones, not everybody had a phone in their house.
Nope.
We didn't have a phone in our house. We used the drugstore telephone. And that was considered a luxury to have a phone in the house. You weren't that lucky.
How about you? Did you have a phone, Enos?
Well, our best communication was through the neighbors, passing through as we sat outside, and they would give us what they heard, and we would exchange, news that way. But we had no phone at the time until See, I lived 8 years in Kentucky, and in Kentucky there was just nothing. We didn't have transportation of any kind. We walked most of the time. In fact, even in school, we only had 2 schoolrooms, one up to 1, 2, and 3, and 4, 5, and 6. After that, we had to go to Louisville to finish our education. But then we came back, and when we came back, there was very little except for the streetcar. After that, well, the buses came in. Then we felt pretty, advanced. But really, we didn't have much communication except from people who came to visit and neighbors that went by. And the newspaper, my mom and dad were from Italy, so they didn't read and write English at the time, And that was it, really. We just grew up through verbal,
And how about you, Alice? Did you have a
Well,
telephone?
Yes, we
What
did
kind
have-
was it?
We had a telephone, and we had it in our dining room, and we had to put a nickel in to make a call, and we had a 2-party line. And if you picked up the phone and somebody was speaking, you hung up the phone if you were honest. Otherwise, you'd like to listen to their conversation. So, and then once a month, the telephone man would come and take the nickels, and we had a lot of neighbors that didn't have a phone, so they'd come by us and use it, and sometimes instead of a nickel, they'd put a slug in there.
Oh,
And of course, if we had enough nickels, we didn't have to pay. If we didn't have enough, then we were charged. And so we had that, and of course, we always had a car. Yeah, Dad was in business, so we had a car. And of course, we always had the newspaper. Every day we had the newspaper delivered. And it was the northwest side of Chicago. And we had the streetcar running down Cicero. It was 7 cents for the streetcar. Yeah.